Hello and welcome to my Preservation Evoker guide for The War Within Season 1. The end of the season is approaching, so I decided to make this guide for you guys, um, because now is the perfect time to push for raiding and get your seasonal goals, whether it be Rival, Duelist, Elite, Legend, Gladiator, Strategist. Um, Now is the perfect time to push for those, as the inflation is at its highest right now, and you don't want to cut it too short to the end of season announcement, which Blizzard will do in the coming weeks. Let's start by talking about pros and cons. Why would you want to play and push with Preservation Evoker? Well, Preservation Evoker right now has the strongest throughput in the game, very close to Holy Paladin. Preservation Evoker has a stronger throughput than Holy Paladin. The Paladin is stronger overall as a healer, especially in threes, because of the amount of damage reduction, mitigation, cooldowns that it has. Of course, including Bubble, including the new Lightsmith build with the permanent Spirit Ring, and so on. So, if you only look at the healing, Preservation Evoker is slightly ahead of the Holy Paladin, but Holy Paladin is a little bit better than Preservation. Preservation really shines in damage as well as healing. Um, Evoker as a class has a very low range for healer specialization. It only reaches up to 30 yards with its normal rotational abilities, and instead with its big cooldowns, it reaches up to 40 yards. And I'm only talking about Communion, Emerald Communion, and Rewind. Anything else is below 40 yards, and it's 30 yards. Let's see. One other really strong thing about evokers is that they have 4 schools of magic, which is a very strong thing for any healer. This basically means that you do not want to fake cast anything other than Sleepwalk. Um, there are reasons why you want to fake cast Sleepwalk, and this will only come with experience, but most of the time you do not need to worry about fake casting. If they kick you on one school, you can cast another school. Um, Specifically, you have Green School, which is the Nature School, which is the green spells in your spellbook. They are very, very distinguishable with colors, um, to which school they belong to. Then you have the Fire spells, which is Living Flame and Fire Breath, and then you have the Bronze. You have the Bronze school, which includes Echo, Reversion, it includes Time Dilation, it includes Stasis, Rewind, Tip the Scales, which is your NS, and so on. Then you have the Black School, which includes Deep Breath and your Root. And then you have the physical abilities, which are your 2 racials abilities. Your Kick is physical, do not forget this, and Rescue is physical. What does this mean? This means that you can rescue, kick, and use your racials while you are silenced, whether it be in a root beam or silenced by a priest or in a lockout, in a full lockout. So what are the cons of playing Evoker? Evoker as a class is a 30-yard class. So it has reduced range compared to any other ranged specialization. In particular, Preservation Evokers rely on Verdant Embrace in order to maximize healing output. you will not be able to avoid most of the time having to jump to your teammates in order to heal them, such as this. And you will have to do it constantly in order to keep your teammates alive. So we will be in the middle of the fight. Thankfully, we have tools to deal with this and to deal with incoming CC on us. And most of our toolkit is designed to let us cleave heal. So even if we are in the middle of the fight, we are able to um, heal ourselves back up without any issue. There are many other healer specializations that struggle a lot with cleave healing and they have to play far away from their team. Preservation Evoker is exactly the opposite, so you can get fucked over by your teammates very easily if they play too far away from each other. This happened a lot in Shuffle, so for example if my teammate is playing where this shaman is playing and the other teammate is playing where the dummies are, then I will have I will have a very difficult time to heal both. So I will have to press here and then I will have to blink and reach. But now I am using mobility just to press my rotational abilities and then I will not have mobility later. And also the heals that I do here, like Spirit Bloom and Spirit Breath, which are the big heals on the Evoker, Preservation Evoker, will not be able to cleave heal on top of the Shaman. This happens especially with caster cleaves. For example, even a warlock that teleports away and is playing with a melee, you will have a very difficult time healing both your teammates. And Evoker is a cooldown reliant healer, rotational cooldown reliant healer, meaning that um, outside of Verdant Dream Breath, Verdant Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and the occasional procs of Living Flame from Life Spark, you will do very little healing. So if you have to split your heals, meaning you do a Dream Breath on one target and then you have to go around and Spirit Bloom the target that is 50 yards away, you will not be able to keep up the pressure. You will do very little healing as well. So that's the weakness of the class. You need to have teammates that know how to play with a preservation, and if you don't, you will have to deal with it, I suppose, especially in Shuffle. No one's immune to this. So there are a few add-ons that I use to maximize my efficiency in Arena. You can either use S-Arena or Gladius for DR tracking. That's the most important one for sure. Then we have Omni Auras to track whenever my teammates are pressing defensive cooldowns or whenever I see important spells being used on the enemy nameplates. Then we have Omnibars. This basically tells me the important spells from the opponent. On the left I have a bar for defensive cooldowns, and in the middle I have two different bars. One for interrupts generally and feign death, and one for CC. The first bar is the most important one because it lets me know whenever I can get interrupted on Cyclone or Sleepwalk. And the second bar is for general CC that I need to look out for. Then we have Diminish, which contrary to S-Arena or Gladius, will track also the DR on yourself and your party members. Personally, I only use this functionality for my own DRs, which is important into setup-based comps such as RMP, because it will let me know whenever I'm out of Poly DR or Stun DR or Fear DR or MC DR. And whenever I actually need to kick those spells or I need to pre-time stop stun setup. So that's actually very useful whenever you know what you need to look out for. Let me see. Weak Auras is also another powerful tool which lets you customize your interface in infinite possible ways. Personally, I use it to track offensive cooldowns from the opponent, and I also use it for class abilities such as the Ancient Flame proc, which reduces Living Flame cast time, and the heal effect from the Call of Ysera, either on Living Flame or Dream Breath. But most importantly, I use it to track the set bonus, which is the temporal compression bonus. This will let me know whenever my empowered spell will do the most amount of healing. So I only use the empowered spell at its most heal possible. Fire Breath does not get this increased bonus power, such as the other healing spells, so it's not as important to have temporal compression stacked up for it. But for everything else, it's 20% extra healing. It's really relevant. You cannot ignore it. So having this buff in the middle of the screen is especially useful for me. I also track with Weak Aura my defensive cooldowns whenever they run out, and I also track my nullifying shroud in the middle of the screen, so I know when I'm getting purged or when when the shroud is about to come off. So I need to look out for that moment whenever the enemy team is about to go in on me. So talking about macros, there are a few quite useful macros that you can use on Preservation Evoker. Let me go over them real quick. So the first two ones that are actually useful are the mouse over macros for Deep Roots, Deep Breath, and Dream Flight in case you are playing a build with Dream Flight. You can never know if they change talents around, because for now we are never picking this talent. But in case they do, you want to use the same mouse over macro with stopcasting in mind. The abilities without any macro will look like this, all three of them. So even Deep Breath. And with the macro, I am basically skipping the one click. So the action is actually performed a bit faster. And I also added a stopcast macro. I mean a stopcast line. Stopcasting, because it's actually very useful to be able to do that on Evoker, as you can cast while moving during hover. So if you are trying to kite melees and you are hovering away from them, then you're casting and you see them pop some pet cooldown like Army of the Dead or BM Hunter's pets, you can use one button to stop cast and root the whole army of pets. In the same logic, you can use that for Deep Breath. If you are, for example, trying to sleepwalk an enemy, for example a Disc Priest, and he already faded, maybe you want to hover, fake cast him with Sleepwalk, then fake his death, and at the same time Deep Breath him. So then you get a guaranteed Sleepwalk on top, because the stun duration is like 3 seconds. I also added another line on Deep Breath. This is very useful for Shuffle specifically, but also for 3v3, which pings on my way. So as Preservation Evoker, you cannot maneuver your Deep Breath. It will just be on a straight line. So you can always ping to your teammates where you are going with Deep Breath. So they already know where you're going with the Deep Breath, either if you're kiting away or if you're trying to stun the enemy, and they can react appropriately. Then here I have the classic 3 dispels, which are very useful. I have at player, which is myself. Then you have party 1 and party 2. They're both. These are very useful because you don't have to target the player that needs a dispel, and you can keep healing while doing it. Then you have kick 1, 2, 3, which is also very useful. Um, it's very basic macro stuff. Then you have rescue. I am also using the same logic of deep breath and deep roots, but this is applied to rescue. It basically stop cast, and then I also cast at cursor rescue. The most important macro of Preservation Evoker, the cancel stasis macro. This allows you, I recommend this to have a separate bind just for this. And basically what it does, it allows you to press stasis while in crowd control, or while you are pressing other buttons. So let me show you how it works. So you are reversioning, let's say you are doing your normal rotation. So let's say I just use a basic rotation. Now I have stasis. So normally, in order to activate it, you will have to use a global cooldown, like this. This means you are using a global cooldown, so you cannot echo in between your stasis, which would replicate Dream Breath even more. And you need to be able to control your character to use it, because it's a global cooldown. So if you're in a trap, you cannot manually, using the same bind, activate stasis. This macro allows you to do is to bypass this whole thing, and it allows you to press and cancel. With cancelaura, basically you are activating stasis in the same instant, and it doesn't cost you a global cooldown, which means you can also use an extra echo in your stasis. Let's say I Verdant Embrace, then Stasis, and as Spirit Bloom, Echo, Dream Breath. This is one of the strongest combinations you can do. So now, let's say I'm in CC, I just press the macro, and I didn't activate a global cooldown at all. So I can do other things while I press my stasis. This is extremely valuable in high pressure situations when you are in shuffle, in high dampening, and you need to pump healing as much as you can. And one GCD could mean life or death for your teammates or yourself. And it is also extremely useful in CC, as I said. So, regarding secondary stats and enchants and gear to use, I have a very customized way of looking at this because of my playstyle. I prefer to go heavy mastery on my preservation evoker for two reasons. One, I think that mastery healing is extremely powerful when you are under pressure because it empowers the rotational abilities that would otherwise do very little healing, such as a living flame without proc, a reversion with a golden hour. So this also is increased with the mastery. And then you have a couple talents that actually increase your haste value. So I prefer to go, that's why I prefer to go heavy mastery. My build reflects this because I'm picking flow state too, which also increases haste basically, and CDR by 10%. And then you have the big one, which is temporal burst. Tip the scales, it's basically a bloodlust, a mini lust that you can use in arena, and it's also another cooldown recovery rate. So whenever you are pressing tip the scales on anything, it's actually way lower than 1 minute. It's like 1 minute 30. And the more you are in flow state, the more CDR you are also getting on this. So it's close to 1 minute 30. It could be 1 minute 25. It depends on the game and how much you are CC'd. Because when you're CC'd, you are not in flow state most of the time. So that's the only part where you will not benefit from any CDR in your build. But generally, you have a lot of haste in your talents, and you also have essence regeneration in your class tree. So that's why I personally prefer going heavy mastery. It also is required me to state that most evokers at high rating are actually preferring to go with some haste and versa with just a lower amount of mastery, meaning they are not playing this build, they are skipping innate magic and go for more damage, and they are also going for one specific thing in mind. So they want like at least 20% haste and versa. Why would they want to prefer haste and versa, which is lower healing throughput? You can also check it yourself in Evoker guides for PvE. Mastery is actually way better than haste for healing. But the reason they go for this is because lower GCD means you can do more things at the same time. I know this might sound obvious, but this also means that they can sleepwalk faster, they can contribute to damage with their team more, with more cooldowns. So with haste, they do more things with the downtime that they have while healing. So a good opener I've seen from other evokers and myself as well is they shroud and press wall with our mastery up, which is obsidian metal. So they cannot be kicked and they cannot be CC'd. And then they press tip the scales fire breath and they start spamming chrono flames. This is the most amount of damage you can do. Especially in shuffle, this is useful to know. As soon as dampening starts to ramp up in shuffle, the haste versa build is actually better because of the way you can contribute to damage. So the second time you get tip the scales in a game in shuffle, dampening should be at around 30 to 35% if you press tip the scales at the start of the game. This means that your damage will have more inherent value. That's what I'm saying. It is also the only way to play Evoker with a setup comp. So for example, if you are playing with Boomkin, Outlaw, any Rogue Mage, any type of jungle cleave with like Feral Hunter or Retribution Hunter, or maybe even Demon Hunter Decay, even if they're not really that strong right now. But if you're playing Hero Cleave, which is Demon Hunter Decay, you are contributing way more damage if you go for heavy haste and versa, because mastery does not increase your damage. That's the main drawback of going this way. I personally prefer to go heavy mastery though, and it's my recommended way of playing because Evoker is extremely overwhelming for you to pick up at the start, and focusing on healing is already quite tough. So all this rant to say there are two ways of playing Evoker. You can go heavy haste versa, or you can go balance haste mastery and versa, or you can go versa and mastery, with mastery being the heavy stat, let's say. They are slightly different playstyles, and I would recommend personally to go for heavy mastery as you are approaching the class, or if you are not pushing for rank 1 this season. For anyone else, I would recommend this build, which focuses on your healing first. Once you start practicing a lot on the class, you will notice more and more the downtime you have on the class and the time when it is appropriate to do damage. So the mastery works like this. It's always active on yourself, and whenever your teammates are lower percentage HP than you, they will benefit from mastery. this is permanently checked for every single ability. So in the same instant that your teammate is higher percentage HP than you, this will deactivate instantly. And in the same way, it will activate instantly when the teammate falls below the percentage. It is if you are exactly at the same percent of HP than your teammate, the bonus will activate. So in regards to crafted gear, the embellishment and the tier, which I haven't talked about yet. Let's start by reading what the tier does. So reversion healing is increased by 10%, and it has a 50% chance to grant an additional stack of temporal compression. What is temporal compression? So empower spell reach maximum level in 10% less time, which means Spirit Bloom, Fire Breath, and Dream Breath are reduced in cast time. Now the second part, which is the 4 set bonus, is the most important one. Temporal compression also increases healing done by these empowered spells. And this is why I have a weak aura right in the middle of my screen to show me when I have 4 stacks. Because with 4 stacks, my Spirit Bloom has 20% increased healing in Arena. Embellishment. There is only one way to play Evoker, for embellishments I mean, and it's the Titanic Redistribution Beacon Evoker option. This also synergizes with Leech, Ancient Leech, and with the fact that any heal that you do also heals you quite a bit. With Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, Emerald Communion prioritizing yourself, you will find yourself being full HP most of the time, and most of your heals trigger the effect of Titanic Redistribution Beacon, which is massive because this is a very powerful embellishment compared to the other ones. So I would just go for that. I wouldn't try to cook up another build. It's just way stronger than the alternatives. In regards for crafted gear, I would just get Algari pieces on your offset by now. You should be able to have as much conquest as you want. So I would just advise you to pick crafted gear for all of your offset and 2 jewelry pieces. Personally, I went for haste mastery jewelry because Evoker is extremely tanky. I don't see myself dying, and because of the classes that I play with. I either play with Red Windwalker, Red Warrior, or a combination of DHDK or a Caster Cleave, like Boomy Outlaw. Boomy Outlaw can peel me forever, so I'm not ever in danger of dying. The only exception is like Assassination Affliction, but in that case I'm just healing myself all the time. So Mastery in the long run actually provides me with more value, keeping myself topped on every go, compared to Versa, which is lower throughput than Mastery, way lower. If I went heavy Versa into Assa Affliction, I would lose the game in like 2 goes because of the way, because of how much throughput I'm missing on my whole team. Damage taken just on myself is not enough to survive that damage, so I just need to pump as much healing as I possibly can into that comp. So that's one of the reasons why versatility, you want some versatility, but you don't want to stack too much of it. So uh, I just went for a balanced combination of haste and Versa. So you can see that my Versa is not that low. So it's also increased in PvP, of course. Let me find the dummy. So I have 14% Versa, 15% haste, and a lot of mastery, like a lot of mastery. This is my way of playing it. I have my offset pieces with Versa mastery, and I have 2 pieces of gear of the jewelry with haste mastery, and then you have the ring with Versa mastery. for conquest, so that I do not fall too much behind in terms of Versa, because you still want some, because you cannot die in a stun, because that can happen if you do not have any Versa. So some Versa is good, but it's not wise to stack too much Versa. So let's talk briefly about spec and honor talents. So there are a few key things that you need to look out for in this tree that are essential that you know what you're doing. The first one is flow state. I've already mentioned this previously, and you want to maximize this uptime as much as you can. This also means that when you are getting out of crowd control, like you just got pet stun, trap, fear, you know that you do not have this active. So you want to prioritize getting this up again as fast as possible, so that you are back to doing maximum healing, and you're also getting maximum CDR on your spells. So you want to keep this flow state going as much as you can. Then we have Empower, Oppressing Roar. Uh, this is a key talent that you need to use whenever your teammate is setting up for CC. It's extremely hard to use, I will not deny this, but it's extremely useful, especially if you are using it on a second go or a third go. So uh, get used to use this talent. The easiest way to use it would be to empower your own CC. So you oppress roar, deep breath, and then maybe a sleepwalk on top. Then rescue with Twin Guardian. It's basically a shield whenever you rescue people. You can use rescue while you are rooted and silenced. The only change will be that if you are rooted, you will not move. You will only trigger Twin Guardian, which is also valuable. So you need to decide if you want to save rescue out of root, silence, or root in general, or if you want the shield right now or your teammate dies. So that's up to you to decide, depending on the situation. Other key talents, Time of Need. Time of Need triggers when you are healing a target below 30% or when an ally falls below 30%. And this basically creates a copy of yourself that is healing for like 8 seconds. It's extremely valuable when you are in CC'd. You don't need to panic trinket sometimes in dire situations. This copy will be enough for you to get out of CC and start healing without having to trinket. Sometimes. It depends on the cooldowns used. But it's extremely valuable. You will never play without this. Never. It's way too good to spec out of it. We'll need to change these talents based on the comp you are facing. So if you know for a fact that the game will be decided on setup, like into Outlaw, Boomkin Rogues, you will not need to play these talents and you can just focus on doing damage and doing more healing. Or you can go for magic resist, let's say, which is useful into spell cleave and so on. These talents are optional. These talents that I just removed are optional. This is also optional. It depends on if you're facing a Resto Druid or not. So, in the case that you want to maximize Purge with Fire Breath, you will play with these talents. So you are getting Font of Magic to increase Fire Breath Purge and Burst. And then you're also playing with this talent, which just gives you a small heal whenever you are fire breathing onto the enemies. And these two talents are optional with the mastery build. With the haste versa build, you will not play with innate magic, and you will always play with those two talents. Excuse me. And then you go for this with the heavy haste Versa build, because we will go even faster than with my build, and you will need to regenerate mana more with disintegrate energy loop. So you will need to be able to use these tools all the time. So the last thing I would like to talk about in the preservation talent tree are life spark and grace period. Echo synergizes well with the reversion for two reasons. One, a golden hour actually gets replicated by echo as well. So if a target is taking a lot of damage, if you echo reversion, the golden hour effect is more than doubled. Then you have grace period, which increases your healing by 10% on targets with your reversion. But this effect also stacks. So if you have echo and reversion on a target, you will gain 20% bonus healing by default. This also synergizes with Life Spark. Reversion healing has a chance to cause your next living flame, which for Chrono Warden is called Chrono Flame, to cast instantly and deal increased healing or damage. And it stacks to up to 2. Reversion is also counted as echo reversion. So by using echo on your reversion, you will gain like the double amount of reversion, or even more if you are willing to spend more echoes for your reversion. So this basically means that you gain more procs of life spark, and the targets with your reversion gain bonus healing, and the targets that you apply echo reversion to, if they are taking damage, gain bonus healing from golden hour. Golden hour is a key talent that, if used well, will be like a good 10% of your healing, even more, depending on the comp you're facing. So regarding hero talents, I would like to add that we are only playing Chrono Warden. Flame Shaper is not currently viable until Season 2, and probably beyond, until more changes come through in the PTR. So for now, all you need to know is you're always playing Chrono Warden. It's the superior choice. It's not really close, actually. There are a few things you need to look out for, as I've already talked about it. Temporal burst. When you tip the scales, you gain an NS and a CDR effect only in one. Then you have Threads of Fate, which is just means that whenever you are using empowered spells during the mini Bloodlust effect that you get, your teammates gain bonus damage that procs when they are doing damage. It's a minimal effect, but it's good to know that you need to press the empowered spells during last. You don't want to sit on those cooldowns, on those abilities. Then you have this, which means that whenever you are using hover, you get reduced damage taken. And this is the passive that allows you to teleport while you use hover. So instead of the normal hover that every other evoker has, you blink after you press it. You need to keep in mind not to double jump while you are pressing it, else you would remove the blink effect, such as like this. So you always want to not jump while you want to press this button, so you benefit from the blink. Spirit Plume, granting 3% haste for each target that it hits, is pretty relevant, especially for the build with heavy mastery. You want to be able to keep this buff up as much as you can. Spirit Bloom is also your least the spell that has the least cooldown out of all of your empowered spells, which are baseline 30, but we use a talent to reduce this cooldown by 10 seconds. This also further gets benefits from a talent that I cannot find right now. Oh, this one. There you go. Instability Matrix. Basically, whenever you cast an empowered spell, it can reduce, this talent can reduce its cooldown by up to 6 seconds. So, talking about PvP talents, there are a few that are almost always the ones that you want to use. Nullifying Shroud is something that you always want, except into mage priest teams, because they both can purge the shroud very fast. And mage also gain the benefit from the shroud themselves, so you need to be careful when you are facing a mage when you want to pop this. So there are a few examples where I still play Shroud. For example, if I'm facing Mage Feral Paladin, I'm still playing Shroud. All I have to do is to cover my Shroud buff, magic buff, with other magic buffs on myself, so that the mage has a lower chance to gain the Shroud effect. These magic buffs include our Blessing of the Bronze and reversion effects. So the mage doesn't have a 100% chance to get the spell steal on the shroud. But for any other comp such as mage and any priest, I just don't bother with it. But for any other comp you want to use shroud, it's your best PP talent whenever you can gain the benefit from it. Then Scouring Flame is something you want to use most of the time, unless you're fighting a Mistweaver Monk with a physical based comp, because this effect allows you to purge with your Fire Breath, and it's very useful into many classes. As I said, the only exception is if you're fighting a comp that is with a Mistweaver. Any other healer, you will gain a benefit from purging on them, so it's worth it. You can gain Bobs, you can gain Hots from Resto Druid, you can gain all the class abilities, the buffs from Shamans, all three of them. The same with Priest. The only exception is Mistweaver, really. Then you have Time Stop. This is basically a Zonia effect. You can use it on yourself or on teammates to immune. This effect is particular. It's not exactly an immune effect. It freezes time. It freezes time for the target, which means dots do not expire during the immune. The same with buffs. So buffs and debuffs do not expire. Excuse me. Um, and also, it allows you to immune everything if you cast it on yourself. So the best use of this ability is to immune a CC effect on you. Either Fear, Hodge, Sleepwalk, you name it. You can immune everything with this talent. So it's useful in the setup based comps. I really like to play this into the matchups where I do not have to, I cannot play Shroud. So it's a good alternative to play Time Stop, so that sometimes you can immune setup based things, such as a kidney, such as a polymorph on you, or maybe you want to use Time Stop on your ally whenever you see CC coming in on you, if you're certain that they are going on that particular teammate. The other important talents are Obsidian Metal. Basically what this does, this gives you an aura mastery effect on your wall, which is obsidian scales, which is a 30% damage reduction that lasts for like 12 seconds. And during this time you can freely cast without worrying about being interrupted. One strategy that I've seen used by most evokers, including myself, is if you are playing against a comp that does not purge that much, or you're not playing against a mage, um, after the gates open, they rush in with Shroud up, they press wall, and they start damaging with Fire Breath and Chrono Flames. And just spam because you cannot be interrupted and you cannot be CC'd. So your opener as a damage dealer is actually insane as an evoker with these talents, with this setup. You cannot always play it, but when you can, it's really strong. The other important thing, and the only important thing here left, is Unburn and Flight, which makes you immune to being slowed during hover. I use this into matchups where I might be getting trained, or if I'm playing with another evoker, for example, Preservation Devastation plus 1 melee. That comp requires you to play hover because you want to be as mobile as possible with another dragon on your team. That's it really. Dreamwalker's Embrace used to be a really strong talent in Dragonflight. It's not really anymore. It's doing solid damage, but most of the time the value provided from either freedom on hover, or aura mastery, or time stop, or the fire breath is too high to negate the other talents. So I almost always never play with this talent. Let's talk briefly about our healing rotation. There are a few things you can do on Evoker that are really good. Whenever the gates open and your team is rushing in, you want to Shroud, as we said, unless you're not playing with it. And then you want to cast as many reversions, put as many reversions up as possible. So that will usually be 4 reversions with a couple. And then as soon as the fight starts and the enemy is popping the cooldowns, you want to Verdant Embrace, Echo, Stasis, Spirit Bloom, with 3 possibly, preferably 3, and then Echo, Dream Breath. So you have Stasis stored up. Now this opener can change depending on how much burst is coming in. So for example, if I am facing a really strong bursty comp, I want to be able to Spirit Bloom NS to avoid being kicked on the green spells, which is the most important school that you have, casting school that you have. The reason why this is important is because if you are kicked on green, you are forced to press bronze spells, which only includes Echo and Reversion, which does not do that much healing. Or you are forced to rewind in the opener, which would be very bad. Or you are forced to spam Living Flames. Chrono Frames, sorry. Neither of those options are good, so depending on the situation, you would prefer to use NS Spirit Bloom for to get it out of the way. Most evokers prefer to use NS, so Spirit Tip the Scales, on Fire Breath to get the damage rolling in the opener real quickly. Personally, I prefer to get my Stasis up as fast as possible, unless I have Shroud up still. So it really depends on the situation, but your healing rotation always looks like this. You want to keep reversions up, and you want to get these empowered spells rolling. So with the hot Dream Breath, which should always be with one cast of empower. You don't want to get the Dream Breath to 3 stacks. You just want the first one. That's all you need. So the hot is stronger, and then you want to Verdant Embrace the Spirit Bloom, so it heals for more with the Life Bind up. That's pretty much the core concepts of the class. Whenever you get a proc of Living Flame instant cast, it's wise to use it because Chrono Flame is extremely cheap compared to Dream Breath or Verdant Embrace or Spirit Bloom, and it's a lot of healing. Like, it's a lot of healing. It's also 50% stronger. One other thing to keep in mind is that whenever you Fire Breath, which preferably should be stacked to full, you get a Leaping Flame effect, which means that your next Living Flame will cleave on 3 or more targets. This, with the proc, means that your Living Flame is massive. It's extremely massive. Just one Living Flame doing 4 million healing, just one Living Flame. This is only possible because of Fire Breath and Echo. And basically, all I'm trying to say is that those empowered spells are your bread and butter of the specialization. You get flow state rolling with it. You get the Dream Breath effect and Spirit Bloom effect, which is the haste buff. But also you get After Image, which is the last talent of Chrono Warden. This basically means that empowered spells send extra living flames on the targets, which is why Chrono Warden is so strong. Like, there is no other reason other than this. Whenever you press empowered spells, you see these red flames going through the target. These are very massive healing effects, as you can see. Like, I pressed Dream Breath, and my first healing button is Living Flame by not a small margin, mind you. So let me reset it so we are sure. Okay. So if I just Spirit Bloom, Living Flame is still my first healing source. So this effect is the reason why you want to prioritize empowered spells over anything else if they are available to you. This includes Spirit Bloom and Dream Breath, but it also includes Fire Breath for damage, which is also the reason why Evoker has so much burst in the opener. So if we want to see a damage rotation in the opener as a healer, you want to Nullify Shroud, Wall to grant Aura Mastery, and as Fire Breath, and you want to start spamming these Chrono Flames. And you see my damage is absolutely insane for a healer specialization. So when we're talking about cooldown trading management, you want to start by using your Stasis and tip the scales first in any game. You can either use tip the scales to empower a Fire Breath or a Spirit Bloom. Experience will tell you when you want to use it on Spirit Bloom or Fire Breath. Personally, I would recommend all of you to use NS on Spirit Bloom only. And the reason why I say this is because the green school is the most important school that you have. If you get kicked on green, you will not be able to cast big healing spells, including your communion. You can only press rewind, time dilation, the chrono flames, fire breath, and so on. The green spells will be out of your will be out with the kick, including your dispel. So if the damage is coming in really fast, you want to be able to use NS on Spirit Bloom so that you get your stasis rolling ASAP, as soon as possible. If the enemy is kicking you on Fire Breath right after, it's no problem, because if they kick you on fire, you can then cast Chrono Flame, because they are bronze, actually, they are not fire. Chrono Flames is not Living Flame, mind you. So if you get kicked on Fire Breath, you can steal Chrono Flame, or you can disintegrate, or you can sleepwalk, most importantly. You can do everything else. So there is a rank of importance of your schools of magic. So I would say for any evoker that is learning the class right now, I would advise you to use tip the scales on your Spirit Bloom so that you get your fundamentals up and you don't expose yourself to risk of losing the game in the opener by being locked out in green spells. Also, another reason why I prefer to use NS, so tip the scales on Spirit Bloom, is because it's more damage to actually cast Fire Breath. It's more burst. What I mean by that? Let me get a proc first for for the Chrono Flames. What I mean by that is if I NS Fire Breath, then I will have to wait 1 GCD before pressing Chrono Flame. Instead, if I cast Fire Breath, and I cast Chrono Flames right after, the damage is going to come in instantly at the exact same global. So my burst will look way stronger from the point of view of the enemy compared to having to NS Fire Breath and then pressing Chrono Flame the global after. So that's another reason why I do it. Most of my games I will press Stasis, tip the scales in the first global. So I Spirit Bloom, Echo, Fire Breath, and then I will, with this empowered haste, I will just cast the biggest Fire Breath with the biggest Chrono Flame. Pretend that I got the proc here. But basically the idea is that you want to do this burst when you have a proc of instant cast Chrono Flames, which is the biggest damage. You can do this. You don't have to do this in the opener every time, especially if your team is taking unhealable damage. But whenever you have the chance to use it, you should use Fire Breath because it's a really strong button. It doesn't cost a lot of mana, and it can force the enemy to press defensive cooldowns that they would otherwise not use. It's one of the biggest strengths of evokers, so you need to get used to the fact that you don't have to only juggle your healing spells, you also have to juggle your fire breath in between your damage, in between healing, so that you help your team applying pressure. So when we talk about mana efficiency on Evoker, there are two main concepts that you need to know. Your green spells are your most expensive spells. Everything costs mana on Evoker, but Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom, which are your key burst healing spells, cost a lot of mana. Sleepwalk costs some mana. Shroud costs some mana. Everything on Evoker sadly has a mana cost to it. And the spec is balanced that way so that we don't keep our teammates alive for much longer than 4 to 5 minutes approximately. In order to reach that, you need to use Emerald Communion early in a game and cast Disintegrates with Energy Loop talent whenever the enemy team is not bursting. That's the only way to fight those really mana intensive games such as Thundercleave this season, but it could be any other comp that tries to win you with mana. So out mana you. There are another concept that you can use, which is the essence burst mechanic. The essence burst mechanic basically renders your next essence ability free of cost. This cost means that its essence cost is 0 and its mana cost is 0. Echo without the proc costs 33k mana. With the essence burst proc it's free. So whenever you get a proc, if you are fighting a team that really wants to win you in mana, you should prioritize it on echo casts, while you want to disintegrate with your actual essence. Why do I say this? Isn't it better to press echo procs on disintegrate? Not really, because you can get interrupted on your disintegrate, rendering your cast useless. Whereas with echo, you guarantee this free of charge regeneration on mana every time. There are a few situations where you are forced to use the proc on disintegrate, but that's basically for only one reason, is because you are running out of mana and running out of time, and whenever you get the essence you need to press disintegrate every time. You will see me do this a lot in 3v3 games into Thundercleave, just because of how the matchup works. You need to get as much mana as possible. In an ideal game, you will get to 660k mana regeneration from Communion, which is basically 2 Communion uses, and 1 million mana regeneration from Energy Loop. That's the target into those types of games. So when we talk about Preservation Evoker utility. There are a few things that you have, tools at your disposal. The first thing to note is that you have two disruption tools from track tier racials, which are Wing Buffet and Tail Swipe. Those interrupts your cast, the cast of your enemies, on top of your kick. It's extremely useful into any druid that tries to clone you. They will not expect to be able to Wing Buffet and Tail Swipe or kick. Also, Rescue is a big one. Rescue is a 30-yard range, 1 minute cooldown that allows you to displace your allies in one direction. But this is a 60-yard spell in disguise. What do I mean by this? Rescue is 30 yards from your the ally that you want to grip, and it's 30 yards from your position. Let me show you how it looks in game. Basically, the key concept is that I want to be in the direction that I want to grip my ally. Why is that? It's because rescue is 30 yards from your ally, but the direction where you go is based on where my character is. It's not based where my ally is. So if I want to go this way, I should be in this direction, ahead of my teammate. In another case, if I want to grip him in this direction, if the enemy caster is in this direction, I want to rescue this way, I need to be ahead of him still. Because if I try to do the same from this position, I will not be able to reach. Because it's 30 yards from my position, always. So the best way to use rescue is to be ahead of your teammate with a hover spell and so on, and grip them in this direction. So my teammate is over there, but I can grip him all the way, like actually all the way, over here. So this is a 60-yard spell in disguise, basically. The dispel function also removes poison. It's not only magic. And you have cauterizing flame, which removes bleeds, poison, curse, and disease. It's especially useful into an all-hit case, into assassination rogues and into elementals, because or any shaman, because you can dispel hex once a minute. Other than that, you also have time spiral, which is a cooldown that resets a movement ability on every single one of your allies, of your party members or raid members, including yourself. For you, it's a hover. For other class, the ones that comes to mind is feral or any druid dash, pony for retribution, or any paladin, or a heroic clip for warriors. But there is one specific ability that gets resets for every single class. So it depends, depending on your teammates, you want to know which cooldown you are setting. Other important utilities is that you get empowered oppressing roar, and the oppressing roar function extends CC on the enemies. The best way to use it is if you are able to get roar on all three your opponents, so the enemy healer is only able to dispel one of all three, so you get the most amount of benefit from the roar. And you have a root. The sleepwalk is basically a fear DR CC. It's almost always used on healers. When we are trying to survive on Evoker, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. When the gates open, you can just shroud and you will be fine. Whenever shroud is off, that's when you start to become a target, either through purge on shroud or whenever it runs out, that's when you become a vulnerable target. When the enemy is trying to kill you, you don't want to fake cast at all on Evoker. If they kick you on green, you want to use your bronze skull to save your life. If they kick you on fire as well, and bronze, which is chronoflame. So if they kick you on chronoflame, both your fire and bronze spells will be off, will be locked out. So you either communion to get out of danger, or you spirit bloom if you have the time to do it. The cooldown rotation whenever they are on you should be always to try and renewing blaze the incoming damage first, because it's the cooldown that requires you to be the highest HP out of your defensives in order to benefit from it, because sometimes they just try to go through. So if you are half HP, renewing blaze will not do anything. In that hypothetical scenario, you want to just press both renewing blaze and obsidian scales. Whenever you have only one stack of obsidian scales left, you want to prioritize time dilation first on yourself, so both of those cooldowns are coming back up. Because time dilation is only 1 minute, but most importantly, it only delays damage. Time dilation is an extremely powerful tool, but you cannot use it like a pain suppression or iron bark and so on. It simply delays damage. So the best use out of time dilation is if Spirit Bloom and Dream Breath are on cooldown, you do not have a lot of healing for like 4 seconds, then you want to time dilation in that specific time frame, so by the time you have Spirit Bloom and Dream Breath, your teammate is still alive. One extra thing to note is whenever you have time dilation on a player, the golden hour and the rewind will be stronger on the person that is taking damage. This includes yourself. Why is that? It's because it counts damage taken as if the time the time dilation effect is not happening. Let me explain this a little bit better. It's as if the player that has time dilation already took all the damage and is not delaying the damage with time dilation. That's a better way of putting it. It also counts for the damage over time effect of time dilation itself. So whenever the teammate is taking a lot of damage and you like to time dilation when they are like 30% HP, that includes yourself, and you start to get them back up with Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom, with like half the duration remaining on time dilation, your golden hour effect from reversion will be at its peak of strength. That's the best way to that's the best time to reapply reversion. And the same goes for rewind. Whenever you are especially whenever your teammate time dilation is about to run out, and the enemy team is trying to kill that person through time dilation, the rewind will almost be a full heal through the damage. So as a preservation evoker, we have a lot of potential comps that we can run. We are a very offensive healer, so we can play Outlaw Boomkin, which is one of the strongest comps that you can possibly play. The comp is basically built around how the rogue setups kills with stuns, and you need to simply assist your team with damage and sleepwalks. If you are on voice, you can also coordinate an oppressing roar for the rogue, so that the CC is really strong. For example, you can set up a 7 seconds kidney, you can set up a 7 to 8 seconds clone, no, an 8-second clone with Empower. There are a lot of cool things you can do with Oppressing Roar with Outlaw Boomkin. And with that specific comp, I would advise you to play the Haste Versa build, because the most important thing in that comp is that you contribute damage, and the games will be very fast in any case. Another really good comp that I've seen played on the ladder with the same Haste Versa build is Assassination Elemental and Outlaw Elemental. Both of those comps are still based on the rogue ability to lock down the enemy team, and it is it's a very strong comp that can also go the distance and dampen the opponent. In the same way, you want to prioritize damage in that comp whenever the rogue is trying to burst the enemy team down. And the fire breath effect with purge is extremely deadly when paired with an assassination rogue or an outlaw rogue doing damage. Another thing that you can play with preservation, you can play melee cleaves. In that case, I would advise you to lean towards the mastery build. If you're trying to play, for example, Retri Demon Hunter or Ret War with preservation, your healing is going to be more important than your damage, because they have already plenty of damage, and you will only assist in key moments whenever the enemy healer is in CC. You can Fire Breath, Chrono Flame someone for like 30% of their HP, and that's the length of your damage contribution in those comps, because you will see for yourself that most of the time you will have to focus on healing. Another good melee cleave potentially can be Frost Decay and Demon Hunter, even though it's not at its peak potential right now, because both of those classes have weaknesses this patch. But in general, Demon Hunter, DK would really like to play with a Preservation Evoker, and especially Frost DK really likes to play with a Preservation Evoker because I can Oppress Roar his big death grip go. So whenever he grips in the enemy, I can Oppress Roar all the stuns, all the silence on all three targets. So that's the dream scenario for an Evoker whenever Demon Hunter and DK are meta classes, because Preservation Evoker has the best synergy with them. Right now, right now, let's recap. You can play with Ret War, you can play with Demon Hunter Retri, you can play with DK DH, which is the Death Knight Demon Hunter. You can play with Outlaw Boomkin. You can play. You can also play with Beast Mastery Retri, and the reason why is because Retribution enables you to not be locked down that much, because you can just sank an extra fear or an extra stun on you, so you can contribute to your team killing a target, because the Retri can hodge into trap and you can sleepwalk off on the healer with an aura mastery build. In that type of comp, you want to prioritize healing still, because with Hunter and Retri, you don't want to make them use their cooldowns in the first 30 seconds of the fight. And in order to preserve Lay on Hands, Sack, or other important cooldowns such as Bop or Bubble, you need to be pumping a lot of healing in the first burst window, so that the Retri has tools to survive by himself for a long time, or assist you with a lay on hands on you whenever the enemy team decides to go on you, if the sank is down, and so forth, and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of options on Preservation Evoker for comps, and in the future, if Demon Hunter or Death Knight become viable again, or rank 1 viable again, your favorite comp is by a mile Death Knight Demon Hunter, just because of the synergy between those classes is really high. So thank you very much for watching this guide. I would appreciate if you leave a sub on the channel or a like. I'm trying to make these guides whenever the season is about to finish, because this is the perfect opportunity to get your glad or your seasonal goal, which may be rival, duelist, elite, legend, or if you want to push for glad. No matter what's your objective this season, I wish you all the best of luck in your climb, and I hope to see you around on my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.